So I wanted to make a video looking through my armor set history that kind of catalogs my journey from HR to MR, especially now since I'm running out of room because I have so many sets. So before these guys are erased, I want to archive them. So the first set that I used was titled, obviously, G-Rank Starter Set. And nothing crazy here, just full Draken with the Xeno chest. I took Iceborne as an opportunity to better learn a different weapon instead of playing through it with Lance. I started with Insect Glaive because I wanted to kind of get more comfortable with Insect Glaive, and I thought this was a good opportunity to kind of really master a weapon a little more. But super basic set, worked really good for early G rank. The only thing I kind of miss from this set is Elemental Airborne because it doesn't exist in Master Rank yet. So hopefully that'll come back in a future set, whether that's a crossover or whatever. And this BO set actually, originally I only had like a couple pieces and it was a mix, but later I made it just because it was, I thought it looked kind of cool. So from Viper Tobi-Kadachi on, I basically used this. This carried me all the way until my first proper G rank set, which we'll see in just a moment. But I really like that weapon. It's a great early game weapon for Paralyze. That, between the Paralyze and the mounting, I could kind of mitigate a lot of the damage. And then Barioth was my first, not like wall, because I'm fairly used to fighting him because I fought him so much in past games, but he was my first one where it's like, okay, I'm taking a lot of damage now. I need G rank level defense. So I made his full set and then threw the Viper, the Kadachi Viper tail on there and used that for a long time. And the next set that I really stopped to make was this Greatsword set, all because of this particular sword. I love the Brachydios sword ever since 3 Ultimate. So I was like, okay, I gotta make a Greatsword set. So this was my first Greatsword G-Rank set. As you can see, really nothing special other than maybe the earplugs and the health boost. Very basic. Then my next major set was the Tigrex set, because I liked the skills, but I really hated the way it looked, so I hardly used it at all. After making the sword, though, the Brachydios sword, I went and made the full Brachy set because I love the way it looks, the skills were decent, and I just kind of wanted to use a new set, so I was like, all right. And I made a couple variations of it, as you can see, MR and then Brachydios 2, just slight difference, because I think I actually forgot Focus, or I couldn't fit it in on my first set, so I made a second one. And from here, I went back to making Insect Glaive sets. And even though I made a bunch of Greatsword sets back to back, none of them I used very much at all. I was almost exclusively playing Insect Glaive, but just making other sets and then doing like one hunt with them. But once I got Velkhana's Insect Glaive, I just fell in love with it. It looks so cool, like an ice spear. So I was like, all right, it gets purple sharpness. It looks really awesome, so I started building sets around that, and you can see it's mixes of Brachy, Barioth, and that took me all the way up until Vaal. And I really can't recommend the Black Vaal Hazak set enough for when you're wrapping up the story, when you're getting into early endgame. It's such a good set. You get Elder Dragon level defense, and then of course all the healing skills, speed eating, and then peak performance and dragon attack. So I used this set for a lot of different purposes, and it did awesome. Even without health augments at this point on any of my weapons, it just didn't matter. Between the increased healing effect from recovery up, recovery speed, and Vaal's bonus, you're going to be triggering it quite often. So you'll have a lot of peak performance uptime. So that skill and his set mix really well. I used this particular set with the Nargacuga Insect Glaive quite a bit just because it had Dragon and the set comes with Dragon 6. I figured why not, natural fit. But I mean, I had no hesitations using that set even if the Dragon attack didn't apply. And that was one of the reasons that I made the base set or the alpha set instead of the beta set, from a lack of decorations and other sets to mix with it. And I stopped to farm Velkhana a bit so I could make his set as well, because I wanted to mess around with Frostcraft and Crit Draw, because the set, I mean, basically is screaming at you to do that with, you know, the crit draw skills, the quick sheath skills, everything kind of included. So I thought, oh, I'll mess around with that. And from there, I just made another Brachy set. Didn't use it much, but this set, once I got Savage Joe and made the Fate's Wing, I used this set a lot for the Elder Dragons, for Endgame, end of the story, and then early Endgame. This was a very constant set until I got Ruin or Nurg. I was using the Savage Joe Insect Glaive, and it did really well. I mean, it doesn't hurt that I've got the extra elemental damage and the Elder Seal, so it helped with the Elders. And the negative affinity, I just tried to mitigate that as much as possible, but if I couldn't, I didn't stress about it. And then finally, once I got to Endgame, I made my first Master Rank Lance set. So this was the first one that I used. I was like, okay, I'm missing Lance. I need to make something. And this technically isn't the exact set anymore because I have the Ironside Charm 5 when at the time I only had 3. And I just put in some points of guard with Iron Wall jewels. But yeah, this basic set was the first Lance set that I made. I use this a bit, actually. I really like this, and in large part thanks to the Velkhana Lance. I mean, so many of Velkhana's weapons are just amazing. And speaking of amazing, the Namiel set, well, I mean, at least the way that it looks amazing. I made this just because I was so blown away by it, and then proceeded to almost never use it because it's so restrictive, and true element acceleration, at least for the weapons I play, just is not worth it. And from here, I began to upgrade some of my other sets. I went back, made this new Lance set. As you can see, much better spread of skills and the inclusion of offensive guard, which was really nice. So that definitely helped up my Lance game. Although I will admit, I really don't like how the Rathalos and Azure Rathalos armors look in this game. The chest is like, I don't know, too stiff looking, and the face looks like squashed, I don't know, narrow, something about it. They look pretty gross. And from there I went back to upgrade my Greatsword set just to give it a new, kind of a fresh spin with some of the new stuff I had been collecting. And I didn't actually even end up using this set much either. It was mostly just to make it. I like throwing the samurai helmet on there because I really like how it looks. But other than that, didn't use it much. Mostly during this time, this was the era of the Black Veil Vaal Hazak armor, where I was using it so much. As you can see, this entire page is just that set, basically, with different weapons attached to it, more or less. Fire, dragon, thunder. Even though the attacks didn't apply, I didn't care. The set was so useful. That particular fire set that I was just on, I used like maybe once or twice, but I was mostly using all these just same Vaal Alpha, but with a different weapon because it was good. It got the job done. And at this point in the game, I also ended up throwing in a little gathering set here. And this was basically for shits and giggles. I used it like once or twice for some of the gathering missions, but really it was just an excuse to put the Ardean set together and skate around in it with its like future super boots. I do like that they still put this set in there because it definitely reminds me of old school Monster Hunters, so it always has a special place in my heart. And then wrapping up the rest of the elemental sets there was that quick peek at same Vaal set, but with the Thunder Lance. And around this point in the game, I got the Guild Palace. As you can see, I was doing a bunch of arena, but I also got the Ruiner Nurg Lance and equipment. And that, of course, necessitated a change in all my armor sets because that Lance is so good. So you can see here, and I really love the Guild Palace set, and I might go more in-depth on that at some point, someday, but it's such an awesome set, just kind of like the Vaal set. It's great for late story, early to mid endgame, and I still use it from sometimes now just because the extra carve on tails has literally saved me from having to do hunts more than once. At this point in the end game, I started getting access to Silver Rathalos and of course made more Ruiner Nergigante weapons, so I had to update all those sets. And once again, that Rathalos sword is just another oldie that's a Goldie, and I love it, so I had to make a set around it because it's been in the game. That same sword right there has been in the game for so many iterations, so that's another have a special place in my heart weapon, so I had to build a set around it. And then, of course, Velkhana, because all Velkhana's weapons look awesome. So, but yeah, this was the Guild Palace era, where I was just making lots of variations of Guild Palace, even for weapons that didn't have a shield. I just didn't care. I loved the extra rewards, the extra carves, and combining it with Clockwork Coil was really nice because it let me fit in Part Breaker, which I used constantly when I was farming things and, bringing my cat with Plunder Blade because I was just needed so many items. And that just about brings us up to where I currently am here. In just a moment, I'll put on my Pride-helmed GS Neb utility. And I mean, there are a few sets I've made since then, much more optimization and things, but at this point I'm deep into Endgame, so this isn't really my path anymore than it just is my current state. And that's more or less all the sets that I used from high rank to master rank, my kind of the progression that tells the story of my adventure. But anyway, happy hunting.